Hello everyone, and welcome to Tabletop, the channel dedicated to all things trading cards and board games. This show and the following content was made possible thanks to viewers like you who supported us through buying singles and products from our website, www.tabletop.ie, or our card market account. If you want to show your support in other ways, then please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Now, let's get on to the episode. Welcome back, Team Tabletop. Today, I have a little bit of a special episode. It is a few days before the official release of Kaldheim. All the cards have been spoiled, and as you know, as Mythic cards are revealed inside new sets, they tend to have an impact on the metagame of EDH, especially around the playgroup, because my playgroup in particular, they love getting these new cards, spending all out, and I see these amazingly stupid combinations. And today we're going to go through my thoughts on some of these cards and where I think they have a place inside the meta, or if they're going to be strong or not. And I think this is a good reminder for me, so that I know exactly what cards I'm trying to pull, or what cards I should keep when I'm pulling my stuff inside the Collector's Boosters earlier next week, as well as give you guys a little bit of insight on what my thinking is when it comes to building decks or when I'm looking at cards. As you can see, we're using a little bit of a new kind of setup. This is the setup that I made for daily kind of content, easier to present for you guys. The other one's for news and unboxing. It's a little bit harder to set up, and I wouldn't be able to do, and I don't have all the information that I need right in front of me to give you guys all the news that I want to give, especially for things that require this much detail. So without further ado, let's go into the first card. The first card is Halvar, God of Battle. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or attachment or equipment to a creature you control to target creature you control. Now for 2 and 2 white, it is quite pricey for a 4/4. I think it's okay. The way the card is designed, you can't really ambush your opponents, but with his god side. And realistically, not a lot of decks are going to be going wide with equipment, because most of them prefer a Voltron kind of setup. However, being able to put him out on the battlefield, giving everything double strike, could win you games. And I can see how it will be useful later in the game, once you have like a lot of tokens out and you can spread it across. However, it's very expensive to be re-equipping everything. Things like Arun from Commander Legends just lets you equip all your equipment and aura cards, I believe, to one particular creature by the start of combat, and it's only uncommon. Granted that was made for the Commander format, this one is made for, it's made for standard, and the power level has really gone down, as you can tell. It's one of those double-sided cards, so the other side is, let me have a look here, Sword of the Realms. My opinion on this is that it's not terrible. If you use something like Sigarda's Aid to flash it in, you'll be able to protect one of your creatures, bringing it back to your hand, and the equipment will stay on the field, giving it a 2/0 with Vigilance. But I don't really think this is great. The swords, A Feast of Famine, and everything else, they're still staples and are arguably a lot better. Well, they are a lot better. This one I think has a very nice tech. It has a double-sided use, one that can potentially end games, one that can potentially give you back cards that you don't want dying if you have Sigarda's Aid. But other than that, I don't think it's very strong. Well, we'll have to see, don't we? Moving on, we have Respondent Angel. Respondent Angel it's what I would call cost-effective. It's certainly not overdoing anything for 3 mana. It's a 3/3 flyer, and whenever it enters the battlefield or dies, you may exile another creature from your graveyard. When you do, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control other than Respondent Marshal that shares a creature type with the exile card. So even if you exile an angel or a warrior, Respondent Angel himself or herself will not get a counter. However, if you were to think about effects that are similar to this, it would be, well, you can kind of exploit it using like a bunch of blinkers like a Emil or Soul Herder. But the thing is, it's not that great. It's competing for a spot that Carter's Crusade currently occupies, which is 2 mana more expensive. Granted, this one is 2 mana cheaper, and it gives you a little bit of port presence. However, Carter's Crusade requires no manipulation of your graveyard or exiling. There's no setup at all. All you have to do is just keep pumping out creatures, and as is an enchantment, it is better equipped to deal with removals, because there's a lot of creature removals, but there's there's not hardly, but in relation to enchantment removals, there's hardly any compared to creature removal. I think it's an okay card. It's a good budget option if you don't have Crusade, and I think it goes good inside the 99 if you have a tribal going on. I'm not too sure. I mean, on the one hand, you do get this out on turn 3, you probably have a lot of tokens out, and then you can get some benefit off something like Together Forever. But other than that, I don't think it's necessarily a good card for Tree. And that's just my 2 cents on it. Like, surely someone's going to prove me wrong, but until then, I'm holding my stance that this is one of the weaker cards that are seeing play. The next card that we're going to be talking about is Sternham Unleashed. Now, Sternham Unleashed is a very, very confusing card to me. It costs 2 and 2 white again. Create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. If it was 4 create X of those tokens instead. Now, if you're going to take it for face value, it's 4 to summon an angel with vigilance and flying. And that's terrible. We all know that. There's so much more value to be had for 4 mana. But a foretell is a little bit weird. Foretell, it has XX white. On the one hand, I like the foretell mechanic because it does give you hand protection. On the other hand, I don't like this one in particular because it's quite expensive. And I wrote some notes on it, but let me have a look. What are we saying? So, yeah. So you pay 2 mana in order to put it face down. So essentially you're paying 3 and 1 to get your angel. So you're paying... Oh, God. You're paying quite a bit. You're paying 2 and a white, plus the 2 mana that you spent in it to put it down foretold. So it's 5 for an angel warrior with flying and vigilance. And granted, it does scale up, and the cost does become more effective as you go on. But if you have 9 mana and you're white, like, I don't know how to tell you this, but there's better things to be had. And it's a very weird card to me in particular because it's right. These cards are made for the standard. Yeah, I know we're trying to go for EDH kind of here, but I'm going to tell you guys now that the last 2 cards that were released that had this kind of had something very similar to this. The one that comes into mind in particular is a Call of a Myria, I think, which costs what was it? It costs 7 mana to create 2 angels without vigilance, mind you, but it does give you the option to put all your other creatures that are not angels and give them indestructible. And I think that is a lot better than getting an extra angel with vigilance. Also, Myria's Call does something else. It has the double-sided land where you can pay 3 life, which is a drop in the water for an untapped land. So at no point inside the game will that thing be a dead card inside your hand. Whereas Sternham Unleashed requires setup, and the payoff isn't great because there's no instant effects, there's no way that you're going to be able to benefit it straight away, and there's no passive effect. Like, I like to think of Myria's Call as a payoff of 2 angels, along with the possibility of invincibility and the option of having a land. That's a lot more utility than Sternham Unleashed. So I put this as one of the weak... Actually, would you believe it? All the white cards I think are very weak. Go figure. But moving on. Let's go on to the blue cards. Oh, wait. I have something. Aha, there we go. Okay. Let me see. The first card we have for the blue is God of Cosmos. Arun. All right. Arun is basically the Odin of this world. And he's not good. I don't like him at all. Maybe he is good inside Limited. He's good, probably constructed, where you can put like a lot of foretell cards. But inside EDH, you're only going to get 1 turn cycle. Granted that you can ramp a lot faster inside EDH, but inside, even then, getting 1/1 counters for each foretell card means that before this thing is out of lightning bolt range, you have to have 3 foretell cards on the battlefield, which means that you need to spend at least 6 mana before this card is out of lightning bolt reach. So as soon as it enters, you can spend 5 mana and it dies because of a 1 mana red burn spell. It's terrible. However, if you are able to keep it on the battlefield for long enough, you are able to choose a creature type, reveal the top 2 cards of your library, pull the cards of the chosen type into your hand, and then the rest go in the bottom of your library in any order. So, for 5 mana, you are also going to get not just a body that can increase in size over time, but you also get draw power, assuming that you know exactly what's going on top of your deck. And there's great ways of doing this at EDH. Sensei's Divining Top is probably the most obvious. And you can also just use Preordain or Scroll Rack in order to manipulate the top. But if you're going to be doing that, I think the best thing to do is go for miracle cards rather than a rune. Even if, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not something that I would personally use because I think it's very expensive. On the flip side, like, I'm not saying that there's a benefit to him. I'm literally saying on his other side, he has Haka, Whispering Raven, which is a 2-tree flyer, which whenever it does combat damage to a player, you get to scry 2 and it returns to your hand. This can be good and bad. At the one hand, if you attack, you'll lose a body presence on the battlefield. You pay 2 to scry 2, which isn't bad. Although I'd rather pay 2 to draw 1, but that's besides the point. The thing is, Haka does kind of work with the other side of the card. You attack, it bounces back to your hand, you play a rune, and then at the end of that end step, you know at least one of the 2 cards that are coming up. And that's a nice little combo to be going on, but as it stands, I don't think it's going to find a home in many decks. I think it'd be nice to have a couple of niche decks where I can just put it in just for the funds. But as a card in and of itself, I don't think it's going to be seeing a lot of use in EDH. Moving on. Arun's Epiphany. A card that gives you an extra turn for 6 or 7 mana, depending if you are able to foretell it. And for some reason, it gives you 2 birds. I don't know why that's there. It's flavorful, but it just seems so unnecessary. Alright. Nothing to say here. It's an extra turn card that exiles itself. It has 7 mana. Cost that can go down to 6. As it exiles itself, you can't do something like Mnemonic Deluge it to grab 3 extra turns, and your opponents can't do the same. I think it just has all the strengths of many of the extra turn cards. Time Mastery is still one of the best cards, and like the only time I'll see myself playing something like this is either hard cast it if I have enough mana to play it if I'm playing a lot of ramp, or I can cheat it out for free using something like Golos. But yeah, that's really about it. It's an extra turn card, not much. And oh man, the next card. The next card. I'll have you know, ladies and gentlemen, next card is no joke. It's Oliver the Allform. This is by far one of my favorite cards that has come out. Not just for EDH, but for standard as well. But Jesus, let's just read it together, okay? Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of those permanent. And when a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. Wow. So basically, when it's on the battlefield, and you're playing something silly, like just a bunch of pump spells, that kind of thing, you're going to be creating a bunch of awesome tokens that can be just, I don't know, having a bunch of crater hoofs, having a bunch of so many possibilities with this freaking card. It's insane. One thing that it didn't even need the last part. The last part is just icing on the top, guys. You don't need to have the ability to discard it. It's the fact that it has use inside your hand and you haven't played it and you can have a benefit for 0 mana is great. The fact that it can copy things is amazing. And the first card that comes to my mind when we're thinking about Orba is Sakashima, the brand new card from Commander Legends, which ignores the legend rule. So you can create tokens of legendary cards. That's mind-blowing. It literally just blows my head. It's tree and a blue. It requires 1 pip of blue. So why would you not run this inside a lot of your decks if you run blue? Blue is overpowered. What is this, Orva? What the hell, you tentacle octopus monster, you? So good. I'm hoping I'm going to pull one for my collector boosters. Be sure to tune in for that. But oh my god, if I pull this, if I don't pull it, I'm buying one. I don't care. I think you guys should definitely be looking into this one. This one is going to be a card for the ages. I'm not too sure how well it's going to be. I don't think it'll be very expensive. It'll be expensive because of EDH, but it might find a home inside standard, so you might want to get it as soon as you can. That said, though, it's always good to wait a week before you start buying cards because it starts to die off a little bit, and before these cards really find a home inside their meta decks, making them more and more expensive, which is what happened to Uro, who happened to be a great card in every format he was in, until he got banned. Moving on. Burning Ruin Demon. Oh boy. Burning Ruin Demon is a 6-drop. 4 and black. 6/6, no haste. It's a flying. And whenever it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for exactly 2 cards that's not named Burning Rune Demon that have different names. If you do, reveal those cards, an opponent will choose one of them, and that one goes to the graveyard, while the other one goes into your hand. So basically, the first card in your tank that's going to remind you of this is Rune-Scarred Demon. Rune-Scarred Demon is a 7-drop that allows you to find one card inside your deck and put it inside your hand. He's not... That's all he does. And he's a rare. He's not great. Actually, he's pretty good for what he does. He's a free tutor, and it can be re-manipulative by triggering the ETVs. Burning Rune Demon I don't think is as strong as Rune-Scarred Demon. However, I do think that it does things a little bit better than Rune-Scarred Demon, depending, because there are ways to reanimate stuff from your deck, and if your opponent puts things inside your graveyard, all you're doing is populating the amount of cards that you currently have. It's basically an entomb along with a reanimation, but your opponent gets to choose which card you get. The first card that you're thinking, the first cards that I think that I'm going to be using this card in is a Kalia deck, of course. Kalia will allow us to put this into the field. It will allow us to get one card to pump ourselves up, along with putting one card inside our graveyard should we need it. And things with Dredge, I think, are going to be great. But that said, though, if you pick a card with Dredge, and then you picked a card that was Rune-Scarred Demon, they're going to put the Rune-Scarred Demon into the graveyard, so you got to be careful. I don't know. I don't think this is going to be groundbreaking. We've seen it before. It's just inside a different rarity. And I do think that it's going to have a place inside many of the black decks coming up. I feel like tutor cards are getting... tutor cards are relatively expensive, and this one is a relatively inexpensive card because it's coming out for a new set. But at the same time, it is expensive to play, so I think it's a good budget option. But other than that, moving on. Eradicator Valkyrie. Oh, Eradicator Valkyrie. What can I say about you? Oh, wait. I would change the lights in the back, but we don't have a black setting. It's very sad. I'll get on that. All right. Eradicator Valkyrie is a flying lifelink hexproof from Planeswalkers, 2 a black, with Boast, one of the new mechanics that are inside Kaldheim, which allows us to sack a creature, and each opponent sacrifices a creature or Planeswalker. Now, the effect that I think straight away of is, I know there's a Chimera card that gives you hexproof from Planeswalkers, so there are not a lot of cards to do that. Eradicator Valkyrie protects itself from things like, off the top of my head, Oko. So this card can't be targeted by Oko. You'll force the opponent to withdraw them resources down and don't have anything else. I like how when you sacrifice a creature, they are forced to sacrifice a creature or a Planeswalker. Now, Plague Crafter is a very strong card. It's a 3-drop that has literally kind of the same effect as the Boast here. However, it can sacrifice itself, and you don't want to sacrifice the Valkyrie unless you really have to. The thing that I love about this is that it's not just sacrificing a creature, it's sacrificing a Planeswalker, which goes around a lot of protection that people have. I'm not too sure. I can see it having a home inside some decks. I can see the sacking a creature to remove stuff is really nice. If you have like a lot of tokens going on, a lot of tribal going on, Bitter Blossom creating things, I can't remember, Command the Dreadhorde inside your field, definitely consider putting Valkyrie inside your deck, because it's just a value engine that keeps on giving. That said, like all the cards inside Kaldheim, actually, it suffers from a power down. It doesn't give you an instant effect. They're trying to avoid the ETVs as much as possible. Rune-Scarred Demon is one of the cards that I see that can give you a straight off effect. Orval also gives you a straight off effect, as you guys saw before, but this one requires you to actually attack in order to trigger, and it's basically a very expensive removal spell that can find its way inside other homes. Now, the thing about Boast is that you can't use it multiple times per turn. So you can use something like, what was it? The one that gives you, there's a lot of cards that give you extra attack phases or battle phases inside the game. The most recent one I can think of is Morog, but there's also the dragon that lets you do that with Haste and Dethrone. I know him, I just don't remember the name on top of my head. But yes, I think Eradicator Valkyrie is going to be a decent card. It's not going to be expensive, but it's very nice to have in your collection as a deck building tool. Now moving on. We have Hunting Voyage. Oh dear me. What do I think about Hunting Voyage? Not very highly, I can tell you that. Hunting Voyage is it's a very expensive card. It's 4/4 and a black. It is a sorcery. You choose a creature type and return up to 2 creatures of that type from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's basically 2 reanimate spells with a lot of conditions to it. It's the main thing that you want to do it for is that if it's foretold, you can pay 5 mana with black. So that's essentially paying 7 mana, plus the extra 2 that the initial cost it costs to put it down as a foretell, in order to bring back everything that's tribal from your graveyard. Now, I know what you guys are all thinking, because I'm thinking it too. It reminds you a lot of Rise of the Dark Realm. Rise of the Dark Realm is just an infinitely better card that costs basically the same. Because even though it costs 9 mana, the upside is that it can take everything from all graveyards onto the battlefield, and put it onto your battlefield. Hunting Voyage has the flexibility of giving you returning 2 creatures on the field. And sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you only need 2 very strong cards to come back to win the game. But it's, in comparison to Rise of the Dark Realm, I don't think the flexibility is quite there. It's nice to have Pardon 99 if you're also running Rise of the Dark Realm, if you have a certain strategy going on. I think it's very nice. But as it stands, I think it's just going to be a worse version of Rise of the Dark Realm going forward. There might be a home for it. There might be a use for it if in future there are just decks that revolve around maybe 2 main key players. I think that'd be great. Like, I don't know, using this with the brand new card, I think they see the synergy inside this, but very expensive. Rune Scarred, Burning Rune Demon, along with Hunting Voyage, probably do have some good synergies. But yeah, I think this is the one. I think this is one of the cards that it's nice if you pull it, but if you don't, I'm not going to go out of my way to buy one. All right. Let's move on to Valkyrie, God of Lies. Ah, this card. This card. Oh, this card. I love this card. For 2 mana. This is just ridiculous is what it is. It's a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent reveals their hand. For each opponent, exile a creature card they revealed this way until Valkyrie leaves the battlefield. And for X, choose a creature card exiled with Valkyrie with converted card mana X, and Valkyrie becomes a copy of that card. So, what exactly does this card do? I know you're reading it, and it probably takes a little bit of time in order to comprehend just how strong this is. It's a double-sided card, and the other side's fucking amazing too. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I want to talk about the 2-drop itself. For 2 and a 1, you're basically putting down a card, and then you're tot-seizing everyone, where it's a fucking creature. You get to see all the information. You get to see 3 players' hands worth of information. You get to increase your hand size by 3, essentially, assuming that they all have creature cards. And then you can turn your creature from that into anything you want. It's insane. It's amazing. I don't understand why this is only a 2-drop, because it's so good. I can see a lot of play inside Constructed. I can also see this being a redonkulous card inside freaking EDH. Everyone's going to want one of these. Whether you're playing black or you're playing like just hand hate or not, you want one of these. Because it gives you extra options. It lets you choose which creature card that you want to exile. And they don't get a choice in any of this. You basically destroy them for 2 mana. It's amazing. It's so good. Everyone, buy one. Put this on your to buy list. If I don't get one from my booster, I'm buying one. And if that wasn't enough, you flip it around and it becomes Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter. Now, Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter is a hilarious card. It's a 7-drop, so you're hardly ever going to use it for the other side. You're always going to use it for the 2-drop side most of the time, but it's fun. It's a funny card. As unlike most Planeswalker, this one, when it ETBs, gives you an emblem saying that you can play cards that are exiled with Tybalt and then use mana as if it was mana of any color to play those cards. And I know what you're thinking. That's very expensive for a 7-drop, even so. It starts with 5 loyalty, but for 2, you get to exile the top card of each player's library, so already you're gaining 3 card advantage. And unlike the other side of this card, once Tybalt dies, those cards remain in exile, so those players can't use them again. And for -3, you can exile a target artifact or creature, which I think is a little bit expensive for a 7-drop, but it does circumvent a lot of indestructibility clauses here and there, so who am I to judge? It destroyed this Heliod decks. It doesn't destroy Heliod. Heliod's an enchantment. It destroys a lot of stuff. For -8, oh man, it's so dumb. It's so freaking dumb. To -8, you exile all the graveyards and add 3 red mana for some strange reason I don't understand. I'm guessing it helps you play the cards, but still. If you manage to mill a lot of their deck, you have like over 100 cards to choose from the graveyard. It's basically giving you a free Ashiok on everyone or Tormod's Crypt on everyone. But instead of exiling it outright, it's putting it on your battle side, which I think is hilarious. Yeah. Moving on, guys, we're going to go on to our red section. Our red... Come on. Stupid Chinese lights. Alright. The Goldspan Dragon is... oh man, all the red cards are fucking hilarious. Alright. Goldspan Dragon has Flying Haste. He's a 4/4 to cost 5. Tree and red. Whenever it attacks or becomes a target of a spell, create a treasure token. Now, if that's not enough, treasure tokens you control have sack this artifact, add 2 mana. So you're getting a 4/4 body on the battlefield that has haste, that can generate one of these tokens or generate one of these treasures. If your opponent decides to spot remove it, the ability will go on the stack. You'll create your treasure, and then you have the possibility of tapping your mana for 2 mana in response to it, and then it'll destroy the dragon. So you'll always get 2 mana back, but you have to use that mana during the phase that it's in. I see that there's going to be a lot of instant spells or stuff like that the dragon's going to be useful in, but as we all know in EDH, nearly everyone and their mother runs a freaking Smothering Tide. And this just lets you basically double the amount of stuff without the extra setup work that it requires of benefiting more from a Smothering Tide, like doubling Season or a Anointed Possession. This just straight up double it. And you can do it, and unless they counter the spell, the moment it reaches the battlefield, you have doubled your mana. And that is funny. I can see it having a lot of use inside a lot of decks. I think treasures are very strong. Well, actually, you think about it. Commander Legends had a lot of pirates to create treasures, so I think this can see a fair amount of use. Especially, I mean, ramp is ramp, and in color red, you're going to use as much as possible. I think this is going to be a great card. It's not going to be a quintessential card by any means, but you're going to see a lot of it in play. And if you play standard, I can guarantee you some smartass is going to make a deck out of it. This guy. But yeah, moving on. Actually, our video is going a little bit long, and the thing's about to stop. Just going to take 2 seconds. And we are back. Quakebringer. Quakebringer is quite frankly, so funny. Also very funny. So for tree and a red, it is basically it makes sure your opponents can't gain life, so it gives you the effect of Tybalt himself from a War to Spark. At the beginning of your upkeep, Quakebringer deals 2 damage to each opponent. This ability triggers only if Quakebringer is on the battlefield, or if Quakebringer is in your graveyard and you control a giant. It also has, for some strange reason, Foretell. I don't understand why this one in particular needs Foretell, but it's there. Basically, it's giving you like small amounts of damage every single turn. It's burning the opponents out. 2 damage to each opponent. That's great. And the thing is, it can amp up with a lot of things inside red. Torbrand is something that I can think of. Fiery Emancipation also is there, but you wouldn't be using Fiery Emancipation really. It's harder to get out than Torbrand. And by turn 4, Torbrand is probably the better option to have here. And the thing I like about Quakebringer is that you somehow manage to discard him from your hand. And then you play I don't know, what's a tree? Well, Bonecrusher Giant definitely comes to mind. And you have Bonecrusher Giant on turn 3, and it's going in your graveyard. You're doing 2 damage every turn. They have to remove the Bonecrusher Giant, and they have to deal 2 damage to themselves as well. So anyone who tries to touch you will get hurt. I can think of a couple of decks here that will be useful. Well, a couple of decks is just putting it strongly. The one that I would most likely find less success with it is Clotus, who essentially is a burn deck himself, and this adds to it. It's just, I like this card. I'm not too sure how great it's going to be because it is quite expensive, but the fact that it has a use inside the graveyard gives it extra more utility. Foretold is just icing on the cake. I don't know why it's there, but moving on. Oh boy, Toreoff, God of Fury. Oh god. Right. I know you guys think my attitude towards this card is a little bit, but I love Odin, and I love Tor. This is the Tor of our world, and I'm very sad. Well, I can't be too disappointed by it. It's not great by any means. Like I said, this set is toned down in terms of power level. It's a 5/4 for 2 and a red with trample. However, whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, non-combat damage, Toreoff deals damage equal to the access to any other target permanent. That's a bit weird, don't you guys think? Because what it is essentially is remappable trample. And I think it has some uses there. Sometimes you don't want to give trample to everything. There probably are cards that give you trample than you want. I don't know what to say about this. I can't think of a lot of uses for it. That's the thing. It's not bad. It's a very unique card with a very unique playstyle that I hope to see in the future. I hope to build around the whole niche area of it. However, as a 5/4 4-drop, it isn't great. It's not game winning. Sometimes you can just, I don't know. I can see situations where it would be useful to have, but those are few and far between. It's just, for a card based on Tor, I'm very disappointed. It has a very unique mechanic, I love that, but other than that, not much. I mean, you can flip it over, and man, the hammer is not great either. The hammer costs 2 to equip, and costs 2 to play. So guards 8, circumvents the cost. But it has the, you pay 2, and then you can unattach the hammer. It deals 3 damage to any target, and return the hammer to your hand. So it avoids removal spells. And then you can play it for the Tor, or whatever it's called. And I think that's something they're trying to do. They're trying to have some payoff, bounce back to your hand, play the actual god, and finish the game. Except in this one, I think it's very expensive. You're paying 2, first of all, just to play the card. You're paying 2 again, just to equip it. And then you're paying an extra 2 in order to deal 3 damage. That's very expensive. And that's not great. And the freaking icing on the top here is that equipped creatures get 3/0 as long as it's legendary. What the fuck? It didn't even have non-legendary properties. It's just 3 and 0. Not great. Not great at all, in my humble opinion. And now, before we move on to Alright, we're moving on now. There we go. Green! We're in green! There we go. We have Battle Mammoth. It's fine. Big boy. Tree, green. It's trample. Whenever a permanent you control becomes a target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. If you're playing just mono green, I think this is very good as a draw card engine because you have a lot of ramp, so getting to 5 mana and playing this card out early isn't impossible. It's also pretty good if you're able to seek it out using something like Court of Calling to get some more card draw if you need it inside the middle of the play. The only thing it'll be weak against is just Blur Clear, but we play around that. It's never going to have any end. I think Battle Mammoth has its place. I think it's a cheaper Consecrated Sphinx, a much worse version, I'll have you know. And I do think it has its value, though. It does have Foretell, so you are able to protect it somewhat. And if people want to remove it, they more likely have to use a spot removal spell. And they have to target the Mammoth, giving you a little bit of a lightning rod away from your actual key players. And as long as you have Battle Mammoth on the battlefield, you'll be keeping all the players away from you because they don't want to be giving you extra cards. And unlike Consecrated Sphinx, it's not actively trying to kill them because the players have to make a conscious decision to target you. I think it's a very situational card. It's not ubiquitous. It's not overpowered. It's just it's good. It's not bad. Not great. It's good. It's good. But let's move on to one of my favorite cards inside the set. Eskia, God of the Tree. I want to make a commander deck out of her. Personally, I want to make a commander deck out of her. She has Vigilance. She's a 1/4. And she has tap for 1 mana of any color. So she's ramping herself. But other legendary creatures you control have Vigilance and add 1 mana of any color. So basically, she turns all your freaking cards into mana rocks if they are like legendaries. Basically, it's so good. But I'm saying that because it's not this side that I'm giving a lot of praise for. I think it's very nice. It's very strong for only half a card. The ability to ramp to that extent for half of a card is great. And the other half, oh man, the other half. This is something that I love. Right, so the other half is it's a bridge. We call it the prismatic bridge. Now you guys all know about prismatic cards. I love Wooburg. My favorite commander is Golos, and here, one deck that I always wanted to make is the Sanctum of All deck. But Sanctum of All is a enchantment. You can't have an enchantment as your planeswalker or as your commander. It's not okay. Even if your play groups are okay with it, it was never designed to play that way, and I'm not okay with that. But this is an enchantment leader. This is the leader. Whether it is better as the 99, well, it have to be seen. I think it is better as a 99 because there's no way it can beat Golos in terms of the efficiency that Golos has. It doesn't trigger multiple times a turn. But let's read it together. At the beginning of your upkeep, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature or planeswalker card. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Wow. Right. So for 5 mana, you're going to get a creature or a planeswalker card and put it onto the battlefield. There are a lot of ways in order to cheat this out. Preordain, there is Senses Divining Top, there is Scroll Rack, so many different ways to manipulate this. And the only, like I said before, it doesn't kind of work multiple times a turn unless you have something like a Sphinx of the Second Sun, which is what I highly recommend that people start getting now, because a lot of things are at the beginning of your upkeep, which is a detriment to a lot of things. But I think it's okay. They're putting the power level a little bit lower if it's at the upkeep, but there are other ways to get extra upkeeps. And I quite enjoy this one. I think it's going to have a lot of use inside decks that use Wooburg, because it's just plain, it's not even ramp, it's just pure value that pays for itself over time. It's going to be the target of many, many removal spells. But all you have to do is convince everyone else that it's not a problem, and then you kill them. That's what I do. Alright, moving on. We have Tarval Kell. Tarval Kell is 2 and green. He's one of the 4 planeswalkers that you have inside the set, and I have mixed feelings about him. He reminds me a lot of Basri Ket. He's better than Basri Ket though, but that's only to be expected. He costs 1 more mana. Although I feel like the shift in power level between 2 planeswalkers over 1 mana is just ridiculous. So how it works is that elves you control have add black. So right away you know that this is a Galgori kind of elf deck. No mistake about that. Putting 1/1 counter on target elf you control, untap it, it gains indestructible at the end of turn. Great. So basically this lets you tap for multiple mana. I think Priestess of Titania will give you more bang for your buck in this kind of regard, because you can put a 1/1 counter on her and get all the mana from all the other elves inside your battlefield, which is great. It also has a 4/0, you create a 1/1 elf creature token, so for 4 mana you can automatically create a state that will protect your creatures, which is what Basri Ket was lacking. However, for -6, you get an emblem that says whenever you cast an elf spell, it gains haste at the end of turn and you draw 2 cards. So that's kind of ridiculous. That's ridiculous because you play an elf, it gains haste. Now it has the ability to tap for mana straight away. It's an untapped land and you draw 2 cards. And you keep doing this over and over again. It's basically a giant win con of an emblem. But as you all know, getting to 6 is going to be hard. Using a mixture of Chainville, what else is there? Karn's Bastion, I think, will give you instant more ways to proliferate yourself. Yeah, once this is a must kill. You cannot let this thing ult. If it ults, it's basically game over for everyone at the table except for the one who played it. And I think that's hilarious. Moving on. Speaking of ways of getting freaking counters onto things, we have Vorinclex Monstrous Rider, who has Trample and Haste. He's a 6/6. If you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put that many of each of those kinds of counters onto the permanent or players instead. That's only the first part. The second part is if an opponent would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many instead. Rounded down. So first thing you're going to think of, this is basically just a freaking doubling season in a monster. It's our first Phyrexian Predator monster or type. I think that's neat. I think it's awesome that it has Trample and Haste. It's a 6/6. It is basically, it's a good doubling season that doesn't really work with tokens, right? I think that's pretty nice. This thing has the potential to run out of control. You can clearly tell that it was made for Infect. You can also tell that it's made to counter Infect. You can use this to, I don't know, So many things you can do with this thing. Planewalker counters, you have them. They try to use a freaking Nico Bolas. They try to +2, they just +1 because of the effect of the Vorinclex. I think it's a very nice card to have. I'm not sure if it's a must kill on sight kind of card, because while it has half the power of a doubling season and twice as many weaknesses of it, because it can get easily removed due to board wipes and such, but I think that if you don't have a doubling season, which is very expensive, or, you know, many cards that let you proliferate, this is a very good budget option, because when it first comes out, I can guarantee you that it's going to cost like, what, 10, 20 bucks. I can guarantee you that over time, it's just going to increase in value as supply dwindles. But doubling season costs like 30 bucks at the moment, and I think 20 is even like overshooting it a little bit, because I know Teferi Master of Time was a really good card. He started off at €30. He's currently worth like, what, 20 or 15 now? It's like half the price. Vorinclex, I think it's going to be the same. However, people aren't buying as many packs as they used to because they can't play in person. That said, though, people are building more decks than usual. As a business owner, I can tell you that. So cards are actually being bought at a higher rate on the secondhand market. They just aren't being as open at a steady pace as much. Now, let's move on. I would have colors for the next tree cards, but they're really weird. Nico Arris is a planeswalker that starts off with tree, costs tree. So, you know, it has a nice blue-white control kind of thing with X cost, and you create a bunch of shard tokens The shard tokens aren't anything to write home about. They let you scry one and draw one by sacrificing 2. It's basically a stronger clue token, and Nico is the only one that can create them as of the time of this video. For +1, you make one creature unblockable. However, that creature must return to your hand once it connects damage, which is good and bad. Maybe there's a card that you just want to get down and you don't want it to be destroyed straight away and it plays turns, or you feel a board wipe coming up, you want to attack and put a card back into your hand. There you go. That's a way of doing it. But for the amount of mana that it costs, I don't think it's great. There's other ways of doing this. Yeah, there's plenty of other ways to do this. For -1, you can deal 2 damage to target tapped creature for each card you've drawn this turn. It's okay. Not bad. Not great. Things that can probably... I mean, it's a nice removal spell, kind of. You want to go for all-out damage. In order for it to be a win con, I can see you kind of using it on a... You can use it with a Brash Taunter. That'd be funny. -1, you create a shard token, but yeah, I don't like him. He's not great. The reason why I think clue tokens are a lot better is because things that create them are like Tireless Tracker, who can work with cards to benefit from sacking, which is Gitrog Monster and a Korvold. Nico Arris is one of the more forgettable ones that you'll have inside every single set. I think Tarval Kell, the one we just talked about, is going to be key coming up because he's actually really strong with a strong payoff along with immediate value. This one, if you don't have a lot of draw power and you don't have a lot of funds, I think it's okay. Other than that, I don't think it's anything to write home about. Not even the slightest. All right, moving on to our last 2 cards now, everyone. We got Kaya, the Inexorable, or as I like to call her, Kaya, going through an emo stage. Now, Kaya is great. We know that she revolves around exiling cards, but why does she cost 5 mana this time? Because she does something great. So, for 5 mana, you're getting a 5 loyalty planeswalker, clearly. You get a +1, put a ghost form counter on any target non-token creature you control. It gains when this creature dies or is put into exile. It returns to your hand and you create a 1/1 token that with flying. So basically you're giving your creature protection from basically everything. Oh, except for, control and manipulation. Well, even then, even if they took control of it and then they destroy it, then the ghost form token creates a 1/1 for them, but the cards still go back in your hand, which is great. And where the ghost form counter goes from, or stems from, is, I'm not too sure you guys remember this, but inside World of Spark, there was a card that was called Kaya's Ghost Form, which basically does the same thing, except it goes back into the battlefield instead of giving you a 1/1. And if you played Lyris Sacrifice, you'll remember it, because it's so freaking stupid. It's so good. And I think this is a little bit of a downplayed version of it. It does give you protection. It gives you get you something to protect the board, but you have to have something out there to protect it first. So they can attack it, destroy it, you create a 1/1, giving you an extra body to defend for next turn, assuming they don't have trample or sword removal. There is -3 for exile target non-permanent. Now, that's good. I wouldn't say it's great, because it's -3. It's very expensive for what it is, but it's a good removal spell. It acts as a protection spell. But for -7, you get a emblem saying, at the start of your upkeep, you may cast a legendary spell from your hand, graveyard, or deck. No, it's not deck. Hand, graveyard, or exile, and put it on the battlefield without paying its mana cost. So you can -7 the Kaya while she is at 7. Next upkeep, you bring her back with her whole freaking emblem. And if that's not flavor text, I don't know what is. This is such a tricky card. It's a good removal spell. It's very expensive. That's the only thing I don't like about it. These cards are very expensive for what they are, the entire set in general. But I do love the flavor of Kaya. I love the abilities that she have. I love the utility that she gives, and I love the payoff that she can have. And if possible, I think you guys should get one. I would personally like to have one just to have inside my collection, and I can see it being useful in some deck building situations, not in many, but when it's possible, I will put her in, because it just gives a lot of value for a 5-drop. Assume it doesn't get countered, but then again, if you play your life around counter spells, when does it all end? Alright, moving on to our last card. Coma, Cosmo Serpent. Coma Cosmo Serpent is a 7-drop. Tree, green, blue. It's a Simic card. Now, Simic cards we all know Simic is the best. Like, it's just way too strong. I like playing Simic, but I will agree that it takes a lot of time in order to look at your deck constantly to grab out land cards. That's something I don't enjoy about it, which Arena kind of fixes. But moving on. It is a 6/6 Serpent that has, this spell can't be countered. So it has protection from everything. There we go. Well, actually, you can use no, it doesn't have protection for everything, actually. It can't be countered. But you can use something like Aether Gust to put it back into the top of the player's hand. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that you can use Aether Gust while things are on the stack. But moving on. At the beginning of each upkeep, you create a tree blue serpent token called Coma's Coil. And I quite enjoy this, because it gives you a little bit more variety. Sometimes you want the dual color, but sometimes having a monocolored token is good, because chances are they might have protection from green, and if they were blue-green, then all your tokens become useless. The thing about Kanya's Serpent is that she reminds you of Dragon Broodmother, who creates a token at each upkeep. Now, they didn't have to say each upkeep, as it's just so good, because by the time your turn rolls around, you'll probably have 4 tree blue serpent tokens. Now, Broodmother is arguably better. Well, not even arguably better. I think these guys are at the same power level, because Broodmother is a flying creature. Flying has extra protection because it's off the ground, and it has the ability to just swing overhead to win games. There is no doubt that there are games where just having flyers is just better, either to protect yourselves from other flyers or just to end the game. But Coma has something else that the Broodmother doesn't, which is Coma can sacrifice a serpent. And this allows you to tap a permanent, and its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. So you shut down things like Golos. You shut down things that are trying to search for enchantments. It's so good. You could have just ended it at tapping, but no. You stop their activated abilities. It shuts down so many decks. I love it. The second ability is just basic protection for Coma herself, which gives her indestructibility until end of turn, which is great. I don't think it's bad. It gives you a little bit of staying power if people try to target it. If people try to use a board wipe against all your serpents, then all you have to do is sacrifice one serpent, and then the whole chain goes again. It gives me like it reminds me of what was it? It's not Scavenging Ooze, it's so dumb. It's the Bionic Ooze? Yeah. Where it creates a token every single turn, except this one is at every upkeep. It's a little bit weaker. Well, not even weaker. No, this thing is definitely better. It's just more expensive, and it's dual colored. I think it's going to have a lot of prominence over time. It's probably not going to be a very hyper competitive card due to the cost of it. But if you are able to cheat it out, or if you're able to put it inside your deck and pull it out, I have no doubt that it's going to be one of those things on the board that players are going to be targeting throughout the entire game, because you're never going to lose with your giant walls of freaking snakes. All right. And I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, that is all 20 of the cards that I wanted to talk about that are Mythic rarity, that are good for EDH. And I'm not too sure if I missed anything, but yeah, I just wanted to do this video to have a good understanding of them, to see why these are great, which cards I'm actually looking for, and to give a little bit of knowledge that I have for you guys. If you guys think I missed anything, you have any better combinations that I haven't mentioned, please be sure to leave it down in the comments. And if you haven't already, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to the Tabletop team if you haven't already. And yeah, until next time, everyone, look after yourselves. This episode, and all others like it, was made possible thanks to the support of everyone on this list. Truly, I wouldn't be here without them, and you have my deepest gratitude. Thank you so much.